Sociology. He grew up in a village in Zambia, in southern Africa, and was a research fellow at the Institute of African Studies at the University of Zambia. He's a writer, a columnist who has published over 100 columns, and a storyteller. Perhaps you've seen his op-eds in the DNR once in a while. Having read those is one reason I'm here tonight. I'm eager to hear what he has to share with us. He's a freelance photographer who has sold and used many of his works for illustrations. He's the author of 4 books, Tidbits for the Curious, Legends of Africa, The Bridge, and Zambian Traditional Names. Now I think there's a 5th book.
Yeah, tidbits.
That's the basis for your presentation tonight.
Oh, yeah, Satisfying Zambian Hunger for Culture.
That would be a 5th book. And 3 of his books are on the table, I presume are for sale, and you'll mention that, you'll talk about that. Okay. The southern African country of Zambia, with 72 tribes, has experienced tremendous social turmoil during the last 48 years. The 13 million citizens migrated into the cities, and professionals immigrated and scattered abroad in a growing diaspora. The diversity of the Zambian society and globalization has created a cultural crisis. Satisfying Zambian Hunger for Culture discusses social and political history, gender rites of passage, food, religion, witchcraft, and recommendations for contemporary life in the 21st century. So welcome, Dr. Tembo.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I was going to sort of speak just using my mouth, but I realized that I might need some help electronically. I would like to thank Anne Barnes, who is not here today. She's not feeling well, for inviting me, and also Jen Spitzer, Irvin Glick, and the Virginia Mennonite Retirement Community Lyceum series for inviting me to address you. I'm very honored. When she asked me to speak on the topic of women in Zambia, I was very thrilled, as I have been very close to girls and women all my life. I even married one of them, and we have been happy together for the last 33 years, and we have 3 boys who are now grown men. So being very close to women is really at the center of my life, to which I believe you also may have had a similar experience. Before I go on, it can be very misleading to discuss the topic or share with you what I know without telling you how I came to know this information about African and American women. I've had 3 major sources of this knowledge. First, I was born and grew up in a family of 9 in rural Africa, in the country of Zambia, in southern Africa, in the mid-1950s. I spent half of my life in Zambia. I also obtained my Bachelor of Arts degree at the University of Zambia and conducted extensive research in rural Zambia while working at the University of Zambia as the Institute of African Studies from 1977 to 1989. Secondly, I obtained my master's and PhD degrees at Michigan State University in Michigan. The reason this is important is that my coursework at MSU and also teaching at Bridgewater College has involved considerable amount of knowledge and scholarship about feminism and women's studies. For example, I taught sociology of the family for 5 years at Bridgewater College in the mid-1990s. So I'm trying to establish some credibility here, because I didn't really just make up this stuff, as you might know. It's been done lots of reading and some experiences. So I wanted to start with a little bit to talk about women in the traditional Zambian family. The experiences of women in traditional Zambia and in Africa is probably represented best by a news item from NBC many years ago. President Bush was conducting a tour of West Africa. One American reporter had a brief story of a young African girl he had encountered in a village along one of the rural villages. The TV images showed the young girl sweeping, making a fire, getting a pot, and doing some serious cooking. And this girl was only about 8 years old. The reporter expressed near disbelief and shock that such a young girl could perform what were very adult chores, while her American counterparts may be playing videos and any such responsibility may be years away. I smiled at the story with a certain strong sense of familiarity. That's what my sisters did years ago, and my young nieces are doing right now, learning responsibility at a young age. This is described in detail in my book, Satisfying Zambian Hunger for Culture. The chapter on how girls and women are raised was written by two Zambian women, Claire Amiti, who is in the UK, and Ruth Mugala, who used to live in Canada, but she's back in Zambia now. The term Kusungana, this is again one of my favorites. Can you say Kusungana? Kusungana, you are learning so many terms that I hope you can remember all of them tomorrow. Because tomorrow we'll have a quiz, so if you get it wrong, there'll be some problems, right? No, I'm just kidding, because some of you might lose your sleep saying, oh my God, he's coming tomorrow to get me. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Kusungana, this actually refers to marriage, Kusungana in marriage. There are many traditional expressions and customs that reflected the deeper caring between partners that governed marriage. Take, for example, among the Tumbuka, Chewa, and Sengan people of the Eastern Province in Zambia and Southern Africa, there is a word in the language that is used to express love exclusively among intimate lovers, whose meaning is much deeper, that includes but also goes beyond just the expression of romantic love. And that term is tasungana. The literal translation of this term is to keep each other. You might wonder how this is different from the Western caring for each other. Sunga, again, is a Tumbuka verb that means to keep. The prefix ta means we. And then the suffix na wraps the sunga or keep around the we. Thus is made the deepest expression of love between couples. When a man or woman tells his or her lover that tasungana among the Tumbuka, that means the couple not only love each other deeply, but their love is mutual, and the bond has been tested and reinforced over a long period of time. First and foremost, the most endearing aspect of tasungana is that the love and actions to care and support each other are mutual. So both of them love each other, sort of equally. In the case of married couples, it means the woman makes sure she satisfies him physically and emotionally, has children for him, cooks some of his most favorite meals, advises him what may harm his health, takes care of and supports him when he's sick or is facing some other adversity. In turn, the man makes sure that he is dependable, satisfies her physical and emotional needs, protects and provides for her, gives her children, he takes her to the hospital and nurtures her when she's sick, provides for their children, and protects and looks for her physical safety. So, although individuals can sunga or keep children, elderly parents, or keep a dog, a car, land, or a cell phone, tasungana is only reserved normally for married couples who mutually deeply love each other over a long period of time. Among all the tribes in Zambia, all brides and grooms before they get married are counseled to practice not just love but kusungana when they get married. In fact, the Tumbuka make a distinction between the romantic love at the beginning of a relationship during courtship and the much deeper relationship when the couple is married and live together in a home and create a family. The romantic love during courtship is called kutemwana, and the love that binds the couple once they are married for a while is called kusungana, which transcends or goes beyond romantic love. I find that really fascinating. So sometimes when you read material from anthropologists, even today, some of them from the 1800s, 1900s, well, they would describe all of this as well. They have some ritual, and it's very primitive and simplistic. We should get rid of it, because all we should do is just approach each other, say, hi, how are you, kiss, and maybe exchange a ring, and that's it. But these nuanced expressions can often mean deeper meanings, deeper kind of connections between each other. So that when somebody says, the woman says about her husband, well, this is my husband Mwizenge, this is my husband John, Kusungana. It says volumes. You don't even have to say, well, we've been married for 30 years, he bought me 5 wedding this, and we have, no. If you just simply say, this is my husband here, Kusungana. People will know, okay, Kusungana. They will know you have been through thick and thin, and you really love each other deeply, and so on. So, to me, that's what really I find very, very fascinating, is these connections that are reflected behind the language. And unfortunately, I want to really emphasize this. I said this in my book in one of the chapters. Europeans may have done a good job, like in terms of anthropologists, but I'm afraid that some of these, they not only happen in Africa, but also in non-Western cultures. Most of those relationships are missed because we use these very generic terms, and especially with the move to have everything really plain and simple. You have your mother-in-law there, hey, why not just go and say hi and talk to her, that's how you'll know her better. In fact, I would argue with you, I don't know that you would agree with me, that the notion that if you want to understand someone very intimately, maybe you are married or close to them, that you can talk to them direct and get to know them very well, that's very spacious. You can know them in a very superficial way. Knowing someone, sort of demands that you know them behind the curtain, which means like people who collect reference letters when you get a job. You need to know what other people around them think about you. That's why when I was growing up, when people were looking for a bride or bridegroom, they would go to the other village. They often would talk to the person they're trying to propose to, but then they would want to hear stories from siblings, from relatives. What do you know about that woman? She's beautiful, I want to marry her. Maybe they will say, oh, you won't believe what she did when she was 12 years old. She really, one day, cooked this shima, and her father couldn't believe it. She was just 12. Cooked shima, the guests came, and her father simply said, she's so kind. That's another story that I probably want to share you at another time. This notion of treating people, guests, very well is another thing which is very, very important in the culture. So it's those relationships that are behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz. You have to go behind the curtain to find out about someone's deeper character and so on. And some of these terms and these definitions of relationships really go much deeper than the average kind of characterization. So I think I really want to, I think I probably have talked enough, because I want to leave some sort of time for some questions. But I wanted to